Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Talk Education. This is another in a series of videos that's walking you through how to create a pfSense architecture, network architecture, with 2 or 3 different subnets. And in this case, what we're going to do is install our HoneyNet software. So let's get started. This should be a lot of fun. Well, before we get too far down the road, on the screen in front of you, you can see that I have all of the software running in Oracle VirtualBox. I've got pfSense, I've got Windows Server 2022, Windows 10, Ubuntu Server, and so everything's running so far. Kali Linux is in the back there. Now what we want to do is we want to install some honeypot software. Now on the screen in front of you, what I did was a search for just open source honeypot software, and this article is dated December 12th of 22, so it's relatively new. This is a pretty good article. I'm going to get rid of this little X here, and I went down and read this. There are quite a few. Even OWASP has their own honeypot, so there's a lot. Now what does a honeypot do? So the idea behind a honeypot is if I'm a company that gets attacked a lot, what I can do is I can install what looks like an enticing little place to go to when hackers allegedly crack into me. They don't really hack into me, but what I'm doing is I've got this place open for them. It's called a honeypot. It's software that's running, and the idea is that I can see them poking around in there, and then I can go do something about it. So I can watch them, I could report them, I could see what they're looking for. Those are the ideas behind a honeypot. Now I'm going to scroll down here through here a little bit, and there's a couple that I want to point out to you that are pretty well known. This one here is called Honey Drive, and this is something that you might want to fool around with. It is called the anti-Kali, which means, you know, if I'm a Kali hacker and I'm trying to get into somewhere, maybe this Honey Drive will keep me out. It is GNU Linux based, so that's pretty cool. Also, the thing that we're going to work with is called, so it's not on this list, it's called Stratagem, and I have found that that's pretty easy to download, and the way that you can do this is you can Google it, Strata, S-T-R-A-T-A, Gem honeypot. That's all one word for honeypot. There's Kaspersky. Here's SourceForge where you can get it. This is where you download it. If you don't know anything about SourceForge, it's been around a long time. It's a software repository predominantly for open source software, and it's good. They watch everything. They make sure that things are not going to get in the way, you know, that they don't have malware on them, things like that. Now there's some other honeypots that are recommended here by SourceForge, Dionea, Kippo, Glasstop, and so forth, and those are worth looking at. They show up on a lot of the different lists, like the one we just looked at had Conpot, for example, Glasstop, Dionea. So they're worth looking at and examining them and trying them out in virtual machines just to see which one you like. But in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to work with Stratagem. I have already downloaded it, and so it's all ready to go, and it is in this folder here. I created a folder called Honeypots, and you can see that Stratagem is sitting out here. And the thing I like about it is that it's an ISO, so it's going to play in the sandbox really nicely with VirtualBox. I want to have you take a look at our initial drawing here and just refresh your memory. This is where we're at right here. So we've got in our DMZ, we've got Ubuntu LAMP server running. Up in our production net, we've got Windows Server, Kali Linux running, and Windows 10. And over on the right-hand side now, we've got a Stratagem honeypot running. It's in the 192.168 subnet. This is a Class C reserved address, and so we're going to get going on that. Okay, so since it's an ISO, the first thing I do is click New, and I'm going to call this Stratagem honeypot. Better spell it right. And I'm going to go out to a folder. I'm going to pick a folder for it to live in. And my folders are all in D drive, VirtualBox VMs. And then I don't have a folder created for it. Oh, yes, I do. There it is right there. So I'm going to select that folder. I'm going to grab the ISO image and click Other. Go out to my software, honeypots, Stratagem, and grab this ISO. Double click it to bring it in. And it says that it is Linux and it's Ubuntu 32-bit. That's fine by me. I'm not worried about that. All we're doing now is we're just trying to show how to install a honeypot. And there's a lot more work you have to do in researching honeypots. There's a lot of different software that gets bundled into them that allows for reporting, evasive maneuvers, defense, things like that. So there's a lot of research that you're going to have to do on your part in terms of learning how these honeypots work. They're a very, very interesting area of cybersecurity. I'm going to skip unattended installation. Oops, I lied. It said detected OS type Ubuntu 32. This OS type cannot be installed unattendedly, and I don't want an unattended installation, so I'll click Next. I'm going to give it just the bare bones here. It doesn't need any more than this. And I'm going to give it 25 gig is fine. And I'm going to finish. Okay, now we need to put this in the Class C network. So I'm going to go to Settings. And you know the drill here. I'm going to go to Advanced, General, Advanced tab. I might enable bidirectional in case I needed to copy some software across or whatever. That's a super handy feature. I'm going to undo floppy boot 1, make hard disk boot 1, optical boot 2, and I'm going to move floppy down to boot 4, and they're not enabled. The only thing that's enabled is hard disk and optical. I'm going to have display. There's nothing I need to do here. Storage looks good. It shows the ISO as well as the virtual disk image. Audio, I'm going to turn off. Network is the big thing. I'm going to put it on IntNet. What is it? It's IntNet 1, 2, 3. So it's IntNet 3, which is actually the 4th adapter on the string. And this is that Class C address. And then I click OK. Okay, now I can start the machine and go through the ISO. And these ISOs, I love them, especially in Linux. They're not really difficult to use. And as long as you're reading the screens and you've had a little bit of experience working with Linux distros, it's going to be fine. You're not going to have a problem working with these ISOs. Again, I want to note to you that this is only one of dozens of open source honeypots, so it's worth your while to go through and do a little bit of experimentation, stand up different virtual machines, see what you like. Here it says live. I don't want live edition. I want to go ahead and install it right there. So I'm using my arrow keys. So I'm going to hit enter to install. What's interesting to me about this is that Stratagem is a Linux Mint. It's forked off of Linux Mint, which I really like. Mint is a super good Linux distro. If you're, you have a non-technical mom or dad or somebody, a sister, a brother that doesn't like technology and you're trying to get them into Linux, Linux Mint is a super good choice for this. So I like the fact that Stratagem is based on Linux Mint. Okay, so it's all done installing. It's really, really easy to get into. So here's the thing. You come up and you need to log in. This is your very first hacking effort. You have to figure out how to log in. So what you should do is try username Stratagem and see if that works. And then password Stratagem. And lo and behold, this works just fine. Now, right away, you see some things that are brand new that you need to check into. There's a thing, I don't know if you saw it, it came up and it said, press F12 to run Guake, G-U-A-K-E. Well, what the heck is Guake? Before we check that, we have a CD here that says that we need to double-click this CD to go ahead and install this permanently to the system. So I'm going to double-click that, and I'm going to type in my password of Stratagem. Click OK. Now, this doesn't have super escalated privileges just yet. There's a way to escalate the privileges inside a Stratagem, and you've seen this before. This is your standard installation stuff. This is all good. Click Continue. I'm going to erase the disk and install Linux Mint. I don't need to encrypt it or install the LVM this time. If I were doing this in a production environment, I would probably consider that. I'm in Denver. There we go, I'm in Denver. And this is standard Ubuntu stuff, so this is not a big deal. Continue. It's just going through a bunch of menus. And still, I wouldn't want to do this in an unattended installation environment. I really enjoy installing Linux because I can see what it's trying to do, and all of this Debian installation, Mint is Debian, Ubuntu's Debian, Kali is Debian. I enjoy the installers because they're very straightforward and easy to understand. Okay, so like every other distro, we have to restart the computer, not the entire computer, but just this VM. So I'm going to do that now. Now this is the same error that we got before. It's wanting us to remove the installation media. So what you do is you do a file close, and you power it off, and you go into VirtualBox, take a look at the properties. The properties are under storage, and the CD-ROM is empty. So you verified that it is empty, so we can restart it. It's a virtual CD-ROM, of course, and I'll minimize this. Okay, so here we are at the logon. I'm going to hit the Enter key and go ahead and log in. And of course, as we found out before, our username is Stratagem, and our password is Stratagem. Now, I also did some research and found out what Quake is. I had no idea what that was. That's actually just a terminal. It sounds like it's patterned after the old, I guess, the Quake game. So you just hit F12 to be able to use Quake, and it looks like this. It's just a terminal within a terminal. So I'm going to exit here. And then the place to get started, and I won't go into depth in this movie on this, but as you open up this document, this is a wiki document that comes with Stratagem, and it gives you the initial URL where to go. It tells you what a Stratagem is, and then if you scroll down through here, it gives you a bunch of pages to work on to get started on working with this particular honeypot. Now, here's the thing. This isn't meant to be an in-depth exploration of any one honeypot. My intent was not to go into detail on this, but my intent was to give you a feel for what this honeypot is all about. I've closed the window here, the Stratagem window here, this link, and I've opened up the menu, and you can see that you've got settings, and it's very robust. This is very fast, given how little there is to it. Here's your actual terminal that's not Quake, right there, like that. Super fast, really nice. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to change the network IP address to a static address rather than a DHCP address. Right now it's DHCP. We can grab a terminal and find out what we are. So if I go to, where was that at? System terminal. And I do, let's test IPA to see if that works. It does work. And we see that ETH0 is pointed to 192.168.2.100. That's within the DHCP range. Recall that when we did do our work with pfSense, we set aside 192.168.2, and we started our DHCP at 100. So anything below that we could use for a static for this device here. So I'm going to go to System, Network, and I'm going to go ahead and do a wired connection here. Let's see, click to make changes, so I have to undo that. Type in my password of Stratagem. And I'm going to adjust this wired connection here. And I'm going to go to my connection settings. I unchecked enabled remote roaming mode here. And my connection settings is going to be static. That went really fast. You can see that I've got either DHCP or static. I'm going to go with static 192.168.2.10. This Class C mask is fine. My gateway is 192.168.2.1. And I click OK. And it's super, super, super easy to do. And then I go ahead and lock the settings and close. Okay, that's all I've got, and I will let you go ahead and jump in here and fool around with this some more. The main thing that I wanted to show you here is that a honeypot is a way that you can set up an area where if a hacker gets into you, they're immediately redirected to the honeypot, and then we can watch them play. We can set things up in such a way that we can find out who they are, where they came from, maybe get an IP address, things like that. That's the idea behind being defensive with a honeypot. So I thought you'd like to see it, and the fact that it's running on Linux Mint is super cool. And that's all I've got. So thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.